Hello everyone, and welcome to the Science North podcast, Give Vaccines a Shot, where we'll explore the latest in vaccine news, learn all about the global health pandemic we are facing, and have the opportunity to learn about the importance of our immune systems. We'll be doing all of this through the lens of our expert guests. This month's guest is Ian Rowe from Kids Boost Immunity. Ian is the co-founder and director of iBoost Immunity and Kids Boost Immunity. He is also the content strategist for the BC Centre for Disease. Kids Boost Immunity is a non-profit Canadian education initiative. I'm excited for you to hear my conversation with Ian. Vaccine equity has long been a problem, and the pandemic brought to the spotlight how important the global vaccination effort is to control the new virus affecting our whole planet. Vaccines are going to be our way out of this current pandemic. Safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines were developed in record time, but the virus is moving faster than global distribution of vaccines. This is leading to more and more variants of concern. I have with me here Ian Rowe, the co-founder of the program called Kids Boost Immunity. This is a digital educational resource that helps teachers educate about science, health, and social studies and allows students to earn vaccines for children through UNICEF. Welcome. Before we continue, could you please introduce yourself with your preferred pronouns and tell us a little bit about your background and your expertise?
Hi, my name is Ian Rowe. I work for the BC Centre for Disease Control in Vancouver, and I'm a content strategist there. I've been there for 17 years, and I work in the area of vaccine promotion specifically. My preferred pronouns are he and his.
So how did you get started in the field of immunization and public health?
So, I started at the BC CDC in the mid-2000s in communication, actually, and communications, and that's kind of my background. From there, in doing communications, the part that I really loved the most was the promotion part. So we did a lot of things there, like, media training and media issues and things like that. But the thing that I really enjoyed the most was the kind of social marketing aspect of it. So a couple of years later, a position came up at the BC CDC for a new position for immunization promotion for the province. Mm-hmm. And I really was attracted to that, and I've been essentially doing it ever since in one way or another.
Well, we're here to talk about Kids Boost Immunity, and so I'll just give a bit of disclosure here that both your organization and Science North have received grants from the Public Health Agency of Canada to help increase vaccine confidence. Can you describe to us what is Kids Boost Immunity and how long has it been available?
So, when I talk to folks about the program, I think in the broad sense, I try to describe it as a first of its kind digital learning platform that helps to inoculate children against misinformation on the internet in broad strokes. More specifically, we're a WHO accredited online educational resource for children that pairs local learning with a global reward, which is really vaccines that the kids earn through UNICEF. It's as I said, a digital program really focused around science and social studies and a few other subjects, math, humanities, or civics, depending on how old you are. With that has free online lessons for Canadian kids. It's available in French and English across the country.
And how long has Kids Boost Immunity been available?
It started in 2018 and has been going ever since. So we predate the pandemic in that sense, and we've been building ever since.
It's not the first program that you've had founded to educate people about vaccines and immunity. You had another program called iBoost Immunity. Could you describe a little bit that program as well too?
Sure. So, that was the predecessor, and that's where Kids Boost Immunity came from. iBoost really came around 2016, although it was several years in development, to be honest. We were trying to do something a little bit innovative in that space, trying to deal with what we consider a root cause of vaccine hesitancy, which is basic literacy about vaccines. And but we wanted to do something in the digital space because that's where people are. And we wanted to make it fun and interesting and provide some kind of incentive or reward for people's educational efforts, if you want to put it that way. And so what we did was develop this digital platform that was based on online quizzes, where people from anywhere in the world could do an online quiz. And if they did well enough on the quiz, 80% is the bar, they would earn a vaccine for UNICEF. So we partnered with UNICEF Canada at the time, and are still partnered with them to allow the users on iBoost Immunity to answer quizzes and earn polio, tetanus, or measles vaccines for children around the world. So it was a way, people do online quizzes for all kinds of things.
Right.
These days, right? Which friend's character are you most like? Try the quiz and find out.
Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of take that energy and put it into a social good, and more importantly, have the activity align well with the reward. So
right.
An earlier version of iBoost, we had prizes, T-shirts and water bottles, but it turns out people have enough T-shirts and water bottles for the most part. And it wasn't until we tapped into people's sense of greater good, if you want to put it that way, or helping the world, or social justice, being global citizens, whatever term you want to use, tapping into people's innate altruism, that it really took off. So when we started iBoost, someone in our oversight committee suggests, what if we tried this with kids? That'd be interesting. How could we do that? And so we did a pilot in 2017 based on the iBoost model, but
right.
targeting schools, and then it took off from there.
And so that was the transition from iBoost Immunity to Kids Boost Immunity.
Yes. Yeah.
And you mentioned some of the lessons that you were talking about, so science and math, humanities and social studies. Do you have lessons that are very specific to vaccines and immunization and immunity, or is it more that the lessons sort of incorporate those into what the students are already supposed to learn?
It's more the latter. I mean, one of the earliest lessons we learned in this program was not to just make it about immunization specifically, because guess what? Teachers don't care about immunization as much as we do.
Right.
Public health. Might seem like a shock, but it isn't. So we really needed to make sure that the content we developed resonated with the teachers. So we developed a strategy really that we like to say all roads lead to Rome, in the sense Rome being immunization, but they're not all direct roads to immunization. So we do have lessons that are very specific to vaccines and the immune system, COVID-19 especially, but all of the vaccine preventable diseases, infectious, how infections work, and all that kind of stuff. But we also have lessons that are I guess a bit more indirect. So one example would be, and this might be a good time to show you. One example might be lessons we have on critical thinking and evaluating information online. Right. So this is the website. So you can see the Kids Boost site. We have counters here of the questions answered this year, and also questions answered since we started the program. So we've just had over 800,000 questions answered by kids. We have an activity feed, so you can see 15 seconds ago, Gaspard Golden Sharks did something,
right.
And top team. So there's a gamification aspect to the program. It's not a game, be clear about that, but there's leaderboards and competitions and things like that. So those are elements of gamification. So the real nerve center of the program is in the lessons dashboard. So this is where the kids go. This is where the teachers go. You can browse by subject, or you can just browse everything. So you have a broad range of learning modules. There's 69 learning modules, last I counted.
Wow.
each with a number of lessons. So total about 350 lessons in French and English. So a lot of heavy lifting has been done in the last few years to deal with this, and to upload this content. So you can see they're broken down into essentially elementary, middle school, high school. So 4 to 7 critical thinking, 8 to 9. I'll just show you the 8 to 9. And this content really is relevant to all grades and more or less all subjects to a degree. This kind of curriculum, as we found out. And so you're not going to see anything here super direct about immunization.
Yes.
But these are all foundational principles around, I guess, support for immunization writ large. So, if your child understands and comprehends the scientific method and how it works, or cognitive biases, things like that, correlation and causation, they're going to be very likely they're going to support vaccination. So this is an example of a road not leading directly to Rome in that sense, or to immunization, but really supporting the ideas that the foundational principles that immunization is based on. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, so at Science North, we also were trying to reach school groups, and we knew that there was going to be a challenge talking about vaccination per se. So we talked more about the immune system. So we tried to incorporate we're in Ontario, so tried to incorporate some of the science curriculum into the lessons that we were doing to make it a little bit more relevant.
Yes.
The format I'm seeing, it's mostly text with some videos. Is this how the most of the lessons are?
So it varies. So just about all the lessons have an audio component, so you can listen to the lesson, because we found out early on that not all kids like to read and prefer other methods. So
are they? Is the audio part the text on audio of the text that's there?
So you can see here. So yeah, it is. It's basically a Google Reader version of it.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if this lesson has it, but a lot of our lessons now have interactive elements. I don't think this one does. Have interactive elements to them. So it could be a word puzzle, word match, things like that the kids have to do, be able to get to the next level.
Okay.
Before they advance to the final quiz. Just seeing if this one has it. Actually, I should have looked this up, because we have some really good examples of this I can show you. So that's one other interactive element we do provide. This one doesn't look like this one does either. Oh yeah.
So they can pick.
Oops, try again.
Right.
So yeah, so there's a lot of that. There's about 20 or 25 different types of interactive widgets, we call them, that we embed into the content.
So I guess when this came out, you're saying officially Kids Boost Immunity started in 2018, predating the pandemic, and it was an online resource that students would access it through sort of a computer or some sort of a device at school.
Yes, so it could either be a school computer, it can be their phone, and a lot of kids will do it on their phones, either at school or home. So how it works is, once they do the lesson, every lesson has a quiz attached to it, and I'll just show you one of them. Let me see here. Maybe I'll do an immunization related one. So here's one on the immune system, how vaccines work. So is there anyone that you would like to see?
How about how effective are vaccines?
Okay. So this one has audio. You've probably seen this. This is the Public Health Agency of Canada famous chart. And then you could start the quiz. The quizzes range from 5 to 10 questions most of the time.
Okay.
They're multiple choice, and depending on the answer, if you get it right or wrong, we're going to give you the right answer. But let's say in this case, oops, I'm not quite right. And I go to the next question. Again, the bar here is 80%. So
and they can redo it if they don't get 80%.
Yes, good point. And yes, and what we find is that what's one of the cool things about the program is, not everyone excels to the same degree right away, right? So the more gifted kids in the class might get the quiz right the first time.
Mm-hmm.
The more kids that are more challenged, it might take them 2 or 3 times to get it. But they're really incentivized to do it again. Guess why? Because they want to
earn vaccines
and also compete with their friends.
Right.
So it's that that alchemy, strange alchemy, that competition and altruism, that the altruism, they have it innately.
Yes.
So it really provides a way for all kids to excel. The other students don't know that, how many times it took each of them to do the quiz. They just know what the results are. The teacher knows, because that's part of the evaluation. And so the teacher has access to all of the data. And so they can see, Jennifer, she got it the first time. Yeah, John, it took him a couple of times. Okay, that's fine, but he got it. And so it's a really great way for all kids to achieve and to feel good about what they're doing collectively in the classroom.
So you were saying that the teachers have access to this, so I guess they can use this as an evaluation tool for their classes as well.
Yes, absolutely. So they have a virtual classroom that they can that they monitor, and they are able to then go in and look at all of the scores, either in aggregate or right at the individual quiz level, so they can see how many times it took, again, Jennifer to do quiz number 1, quiz number 2, quiz number 3, etc. And the results are really astounded us from the pilot, and have continued in that trend, I guess. In that, I mean, the average Kids Boost Immunity student answers about 125 questions on the site. So if you think about that for a second, this one here had 7 questions, which is about the average number. So that's, if you do the math, 15 or so, 15, 16, 17 quizzes that they've done on average. That's before they've even interacted. It's after they've interacted with all the content and hopefully learned something along the way,
right,
with the teachers. So that's real, that's real engagement. That's not, we're doing a few questions here and there, and then we bounce out. The kids that do it, and some, the high achieving schools, they've done up to 500 questions each, which is just bonkers. When we were absolutely blown away when we saw that. So we're able to measure we have pre and post measures around evaluation to look at what the kids knew prior to the quiz. We have a trivia quiz at the beginning before they do anything as an icebreaker that has for example, 2 or 3 questions just to get the kids engaged, and we use that as a pre-measure. And then they do the lessons in the lesson module, and then there's a final quiz that only unlocks after all of the content is done. And when that happens, we have those pre-trivia questions embedded in the final quiz, at least 1 or 2 of them. And then so we're able to get a post measure of knowledge, and the numbers are happy to say have been really good in terms of looking at all that kind of stuff.
That's pretty amazing that you as Kids Boost Immunity are able to use this data to sort of see the success of it as well.
Yeah. So you can see here on the germs lesson here, this is a trivia quiz. So this is what kids would do. So they can't actually do the first lesson until they do this. Okay. It's locked. So we definitely have a pre-measure, and then they do all the lessons, we hope. And then if they do, then the final quiz unlocks. And nice. This final quiz it may be up to 20 questions, because it's really an amalgam of all of the quizzes from all of the lessons in the learning module. And then so we have a sort of a final score as well.
Are there privacy concerns with using this tool in classrooms? I would assume that teachers would know who the students are, but is there sort of a blind for the data that you're using?
Yes, so good question. So how we dealt with privacy, especially with students, which is very important, is we don't collect any information from a student. Other than we ask for first name, last name, initial. And really this is mostly so the teacher can know who's who in the classroom. So when the class signs up, they can see Jennifer L. Okay, yeah, this is Jennifer K. or John C. or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the key thing is that they're asked to enter is a registration code. So what we do collect data from, primarily in email, which is the most relevant thing, I guess, is from teachers. So we do ask teachers to sign up, and that's a little bit more. We ask for more information on that. And when they do sign up, we, as part of creating a team for the class, they're asked to create a registration code. It's like a promo code, but they create their own special code that's unique to the class when they create their team. So when that team is created, then they go, let's say on Monday morning, to the kids and say, okay, kids, we're all going to sign up to this program. Go to kidsboostcommunity.com, go to this, create a student account, and then put in, the information. The team secret code is, and they'll tell them the code. And when they enter that code and then put in their password and create the account, they're automatically added to that teacher's team.
Okay.
And so that way we're able to, we did a sort of a full privacy impact assessment for the program. But that was the solution we came up with to make sure that identities were protected. The other important note is, all the student accounts, no one else can see those student accounts except the teacher. The other students can't see the other students' accounts and what they've done. So we, nor can other schools or things like that. Yeah. So it's all protected.
Your curriculum is, this is across Canada and in other countries as well too. Have there been challenges in trying to develop programs that are suitable for such a broad audience?
Yes, that's the short answer. Yes, there's lots of challenges. The biggest challenge that you probably have come up to yourself is that education is not federally mandated, really. No. It's a provincial mandate, right? So what you learn in Saskatchewan in grade 6 is different than what you learn in Manitoba in grade 6. And every province is unique. Let's put a positive spin on it, which is really difficult. So for example, in British Columbia, students actually learn about vaccines in grade 8. It's part of the science curriculum, but there's not really a great match in Ontario in any grade.
No.
And that has proved very challenging. What we've done to mitigate that have been to create user guides for teachers in all of the provinces. And this is a lot of work, let's just say. And B, I didn't do it. We have people who actually know what they're doing in that regard to do it. So, if we look at Ontario, for example, what we've done is we've broken out all the grades. So let's go grade 7. And we list what, this is based on our research of what the Ontario learning outcomes are for this grade that are generally applicable to the universe that we've created here in these various areas. And then we've created the links to Kids Boost from this curriculum, right? So as I said, critical thinking and evaluating online information is generally applicable across the country, we found. But there are a number of subjects, or a number of our learning modules that are also applicable to grade 7 in Ontario. And so here are some examples. What is global inequality? We do have because the program is not just about what's happening here in Canada, it's about vaccinating children around the world. We do have a lot of material on global health and global inequality, so that fits in social studies. So it's not just all science either. I talked about science curriculum earlier, but we do have a lot of stuff on that because, if the pandemic has proved anything, it's that it's a small world and diseases don't respect borders and all of that kind of stuff. And, we like to think we were thinking about that 10,000 foot view, if you want, of the community immunity on a planetary scale, essentially. We were thinking about that prior to the pandemic. So that's the sort of philosophical approach we've taken to this program, is that it's not only the right thing to do to vaccinate children elsewhere, it's also the practical thing to do. Because I remember prior to the pandemic getting outbreaks of measles based on people arriving on airplanes and
traveling from other places.
So it just makes sense to think of this as a global issue and to hopefully provide in some small way a global solution to it by having the kids help vaccinate others around the world. So again, these are the linkages here for teachers. And so one of the things, we have a lot of stuff in the teacher center. This is one aspect of it, but another important part of it is for teachers, our lesson plans. So we've created lots of them. And so again, this is really to make the teaching as easy as possible. So instead of just saying, here's the lesson, figure it out how to do it yourself, we create unit plans for teachers on a lot of these subjects. And this is an Indigenous focused lesson, New Diseases on Turtle Island. Talks about the history of smallpox and unfortunate linkages to First Nations Indigenous peoples in Canada. It's told from their perspective. We partner with different folks to do that in British Columbia. And so a lot of this stuff includes worksheets and rubrics and things like that for teachers to be able to teach the lesson and to help talk about it with the kids. Yeah. So
that was one of my questions, was how have you addressed making the lesson plans inclusive? So the global aspect as well as including Indigenous seems to be some of the ways that you've done that.
Yes, and so that's been important. The Indigenous lens, especially. We're trying to, as best we can, indigenify, or I don't know what the proper term is, but indigenize kids as much as possible to integrate First Nations perspectives, experiences, histories into this model as best we can. And the way to do that is to work with folks that work in that space, and with different bands, or in British Columbia we have the First Nations Health Authority, and to partner with them to develop these lessons. And we're hoping we're going to be a new thing now to develop a new learning module on Indigenous governance, because we have kind of Canada's three levels of government. So we want to make that actually more inclusive by adding in Indigenous governance. And so we do have that, but there are other lessons we have that might be relevant in that space. So, refugee experiences. We have stuff on International Women's Day, I believe.
How often are you adding new content to the lesson plans?
So, good question. I mean, we add content every year, and one of the things that we've done, we have stuff on Black History Month, and one of the things that we've the last couple of years is add content like this Black History Month or International Women's Day. We have one on Remembrance Day, is to add content that would only appear for a short period of time. So Black History Month is in February. So that's when we roll it out. At the end of the year, and this is why I have access to everything, you can see everything, but at the end of the year, we make everything available in the month of June, essentially. And as a push for the kids to, because the last couple of weeks of the year, there's usually some time that teachers have. And so we give them a chance to kind of do what they want. So we kind of roll out this sort of specialty content for that period of time. And then, this is the Black History Month would be an example of something not directly about immunization, but, it's related. Yes.
Yeah.
So you can see here some of, first Canadian doctor, treatment for leprosy, Henrietta Lacks, and her immortal cells. This is for grades 4 or 5. And so we feel it's important to really have a broad approach to the curriculum, because honestly, it makes sense to do that for Canadian teachers. And so does that help answer the question?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I think the last question about curriculum or topics would be, in one of the meetings that we were in together, you were saying that you've shifted your focus a little bit more to dealing with misinformation. So our more recent lesson plans been about misinformation, or like, I guess you did show us a bunch of like being media literate or scientifically literate.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was recent. I think it was when we decided to broaden the curriculum. So after the first year or so, year and a half of the program, that was one of the first things that we zeroed in on was critical thinking. And then since then we've added to it, but it's not a recent thing. It's one of our most popular learning modules for sure, is on critical thinking. The more recent stuff actually is what you see at the top. Is we've just added environment and climate change, and there's sort of a disease dimension to it. So how climate change might affect the propagation of vaccine preventable diseases around the world. And so that, again, that's the connection to vaccines on that. What we've found is that these lessons, environment and climate change are very important topics around the world, as they should be, and in schools are very prescient right now. So we added these just a few weeks ago to help teachers, to help it hopefully attract teachers to the program, because it's something that they're going to be learning in school anyway. And what the kids find, and I guess what the teachers find is, this is a cool program because it can meet our curricular needs my curricular needs as a teacher, and the learning outcomes. The kids have to do it anyway. They're going to be learning about it. It's in the curriculum, environment, climate change. They might as well do it in a fun environment that they can use their phones, or they can use computers. They can do quizzes. And there's a lesson outside of the lesson, if you like, because they're learning about global citizenry and on a broad scale. And they have a sense of agency, which is, I think, the most important thing of all, having a sense of agency and empowerment, in a world that, as my colleague says, it's a complex and difficult world out there.
Yes,
and in that world, there's something you can do. You're not just going to talk about a problem. You're actively going to do something about it, in a small way, but it's not insignificant. The kids don't see it as that way as insignificant. They come home and say, when mom asks them what they did today, they say, well, I earned 28 vaccines today. What do you mean? Yeah, I actually earned 28 vaccines, or whatever it is. So don't underestimate that sense of what that sense of empowerment and agency can do for kids to be actual change agents in the world. And, we've got lots of really, great anecdotal stories about, kids going home, talking to the parents, convincing their parents to get the COVID vaccine because they just learned all about vaccination in school. And, that's the stuff that gets me up in the morning. I feel like
that's fantastic,
because it's like, yes, they are kids are so enthusiastic. If they're excited about something, they'll tell everyone.
What are your future plans for this resource?
Well, I mean, we've got a lot of runway to go, I think, in Canada, because it's really, to expand it to as many schools as possible in Canada, and including in French schools. So as I said, we have a French version of the program. It took longer. We started the program in English, and it took us about a year and a half to translate all the material. It's a long process. We have thousands of pages of content probably by now, and but we still have a long way to go, I think. Both on the English and French side, we're hoping to work with Quebec more intensely this year, and hire someone in Quebec to help promote the program in schools there specifically, for example. And so we want to do that, but we also have we don't think it's just Canadian kids that like to compete and want to help each other. So we do think that international schools, this program might have some appeal internationally.
Mhm.
So we do allow for schools to apply to the program if on a case-by-case basis, essentially. So we do have some schools around the world, got about maybe, I can't remember how many in the US, but that's the biggest. There's some formal ones, but we'd like to expand it more to international schools, of course, if we can get the funding to do it. We do have a formal agreement with Scotland to use the program there with Public Health Scotland. We're just getting that off the ground now. And so we have a formal partnership with them to help us in that regard. But we do think that, again, given the sort of international scope of the program and helping kids anywhere, we like to say it's about educating locally, wherever your local is. It could be in Scotland, Canada, anywhere really. And vaccinating global, which is sort of universally desired, I think. So we'd like to explore that space a little bit more in the next couple of years as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. You pretty much answered most of the questions that I had on my to ask questions. And I know that at Science North, I was definitely promoting Kids Boost Immunity in our last set of school programs. And so I'm hoping that the students that did attend the school programs that I hosted in May had the opportunity to check it out. And hopefully in the next school year, we can continue to help promoting as it goes. So thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much for your time and your expertise on the subject. It was greatly appreciated.
Thank you. And thank you for promoting the program. Appreciate that.
What I love about this conversation is that you can increase vaccine confidence through different routes and not through explicit teaching of vaccination and immunization. Thank you so much for listening. See you next month, where we'll explore another part of viruses, vaccines, and the immune system. We also want to know what questions you have. If you have any questions based on this episode or about vaccines, viruses, or the immune system in general, please reach out to us using our email, vaccines@sciencenorth.ca. We're always happy to address those questions. If you want to find out more, visit our website, sciencenorth.ca/give-vaccines-a-shot. Also, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you're listening or watching us on YouTube, please be sure to follow. Lastly, Give Vaccines a Shot is funded through financial contribution from the Public Health Agency of Canada. The views expressed herein do not necessarily reflect the views of the Public Health Agency of Canada.